Agnis, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Very well indeed. Very much looking forward to your presentation, and I see that we have a very good connection. So the floor is yours.
Perfect. Greetings from Boston, or more specifically from Cambridge, Massachusetts, the United States. I'm seeing Harvard right now out of my window, and MIT is behind me, geographically and also historically. Yes, I'm an MIT alumni, 4 times TEDx speaker, and a YouTube creator, an artificial intelligence program director, and a professor of transformation, as well as hyper-performance advisor at agnisstibe.com. I'm passionate about helping people and organizations to achieve their goals painlessly. So what's the problem? Evidently, burnout has been a growing pain over the last decades. So I ask managers, leaders, corporate executives, decision makers, would you risk your talent capital to burn out suddenly? And their answer is always an obvious no. So where to start? And I suggest by contrasting and seeing the difference between burnout and hyper performance. It is quite clear when we speak about hell versus heaven, suffer versus enjoy, past versus future. So similarly, it goes with burnout versus hyper performance. They are actually the two sides of the same coin. So how to understand them? The burnout is usually high effort and high resistance, whereas hyper performance is high effort and no resistance. So what is misleading here? Both burnout and hyper performance both exhibit high effort, right? And that's what we usually can see and observe in our own lives and in our organizations. But what we don't see is the other side, is the resistance. Far too often we have no idea that existence is there before it's too late. And why? Because the resistance usually hides where? In the human minds. And that's the place where we have all our thoughts, all our perceptions, opinions, decisions, as well as biases, prejudices, suspicions, doubts, and uncertainties. Every one of them requires our attention and energy to be processed, managed, and maintained. So here, we should be reminded about some obvious truth that many don't know, or more likely have forgotten. Some fundamental knowledge about energy. And here, I have a lot of books behind me, including the MIT and all that stuff. Energy is related with thermodynamics. And there's the first law of thermodynamics. And many might remember it as the law of energy conservation. Once I'm going to tell it, you'll say, yeah, somewhere in my school, I have heard this before. So energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one state to another. And by the way, energy is related to everything around us. And that's why human energetic intelligence is very important. If people and organizations are not aware internally how they use the energies, it might be so that a large part of the daily energy goes towards burnout. And we don't want that. And I call those states. People are wearing a burnout mask, that they pretend to be somebody else. Organizations are misleading themselves or are giving them a direction, but actually not complying with that. So how to discover these states? We need to start by understanding burnout and hyperperformance, by contrasting them. We need to learn how to recognize each state and then how to transition from one state to another. Typical ways for recognizing both states are situations like this: confusion versus clarity, pretense versus honesty, resistance versus transformation. Even if you look back again to the science, let's take electricity. There are resistors and transformers. And those who are familiar, they know. Resistors, they reduce the flow of current. Transformers push the flow of the current. So for electricity, what it means, the more we push the current and the more is a resistance in a circuit, the wires burn. For people and organizations, it's the same thing. If we push more and resist more, we burn out. Once you learn doing this, you gain a profound outcomes and you move away from bad decisions and arrive to great decisions. You move away from energy waste to energy efficiency. And more importantly, you move away from the state of fear and to the state of evolution, from burnout to hyper performance. So what you should do next, I will share a few proven tools. And as we were suggested to do some practical applications, so here is tool number one, replacing thoughts. And for this metaphor, I'm going to use different colors of pens. So let's imagine today a person thinks, and let's represent that one thought in a person's mind as this pen. And for example, person thinks, I'm a person who cannot. And then, for example, I'm bad at managing my priorities. But what we would like to have in the future, the person would think, I can, and I'm good of managing my priorities. So white one, I'm bad with managing my priorities. The black one, I'm good. But what happens on a daily basis, and because people have less awareness, most of the people would say, I'm bad with managing my priorities, but this other thing, other thought, the silver pen, you see, it's not the black one. The black one was, I'm good what? But people would usually will take something else and say, well, I will try to use an app for managing my priorities. And what it allows both of these thoughts to coexist in the brain. And what will happen under stress? People will need to make a decision quickly. And the problem is they will give up the new one because the new one doesn't have the representation in the neural networks. It doesn't have the habit. So therefore, secret is, and the recipe is quite simple, very effective. The other thoughts that you want to be in your future self has to be complete opposite of what you have today. And therefore, that makes this transformation successful. The next one, if you really want to apply something not only for yourself, but also for the organizations, this is a simple chart with the 5 arrows. And the organizations would like to get to the future state, their vision, mission, achievements, and so forth. But what is the problem? In many cases, even if the organization says, we want to get here, whether that's a sales result, whether that's a well-being for their employees, whether that's reducing the burnout, for example, oftentimes people in their organizations make decisions, and those decisions are not in line with their trajectory, with their green vector, but they land somewhere else because of their habits, because of the traditions, because of the routines, and all other factors. And this is a mirror of honesty, and you can use it for yourself personally and also for the organizations. And what's the benefit of this? You actually keep yourself consistent. And the result is that if you mislead yourself and you lead yourself and deviate from it, geometrically, in the long run, we know geometry is very straightforward science. You'll be far, far away from where you need to get. And even if you make a decision to change your mind, you will need to make an extra effort to get there. And practically, if you really would like to learn how the change and transformation works in your own brain, what I oftentimes suggest, if you're a person who's using a toothbrush, and I assume many people do that at least twice a day, I hope. And if you use it usually holding in your right hand, try to do it with the other hand. Initially, it will be very uncomfortable. Maybe you will feel like, well, this is not going to work for me. And those are these ideas. These are these ideas like procrastinate, do it later. No, you need to do something else. And again, this is a managing of their priorities. But trust me, the first day maybe will be challenging. The second day will be easier. The week in, and you will feel, well, actually I can do many things. 1 month after, quite well. 2 months later, 3 months later, you just come into your bathroom, take with the left hand and do it. Trust me, I already done that. That's the intro level if you want to try and put it into your routine. The next thing is, and this one is really great, for those who really want to take a deep dive. When I was a small kid, I had this in my hands, and I always tried to solve it and never was successful. Why? Because I was imagining that other people just have the magical skill, they have more power, more imagination, more logic. And I was wrong. Other people just knew that there's an algorithm and there's a process how to solve it. Now, once I learn it, I can solve it in 2.5 minutes. And if you would like to see that, and if I am successful in getting on a stage, I will show this to you in 2.5 minutes while I'm giving the presentation. The other thing, for those who don't really want to go that deep as figuring out the algorithm, it requires a lot of energy coming to your brains and using that. There is another trick that you can do. How to build it in such a way that there are no color, the same color is not touching like a full border. And you can try this. It's not easy, but I've done that a few times. So you see, there is nowhere around the cube, any place where the same color is touching through the borders. Corners are okay, the borders are not. And that's an easy way as well for you to test how you will be able to achieve your goal, even if you don't go in a deep dive and solve the cube. But I highly recommend, if you really want to experience the transformation here, that enables you to become a stronger person, to change any thought you want using the replacement thought technique. That is highly recommended for everyone. So to conclude, the most important is to know where the change is taking place. It's here. And what is supporting that? It's called neuroplasticity. And that's given to every single human being. And it enables us to change any thought we want. And that means changing any behavior we want for individuals, for teams, for companies, for organizations, for corporations, for cities, for societies, for mankind, for planet, for the universe. So now, once you have learned that, everything can be done simple, fast, and easy, right? So the choice is yours. The only question is when you will begin. My recommendation is today, more specifically, right now. You will discover a whole new world of effortless enjoyment, what I call hyper performance. So welcome, my friends.
Thank you so much, Agnis. You had 2.5 minutes when you took your Rubik Cube in your hand, and I was really hoping that you would solve it for us tonight. But I guess we're going to have to wait for another presentation for that wonderful display of neuroplasticity during speaking. I'm looking forward to that one. I remind everybody to send us questions if you have any, especially our jury members. If you have questions, we'd love to redirect your questions to our speakers. But I'd like to ask you a question that is a bit off the charts of what you gave us in terms of very concrete steps that we can take to make ourselves maybe more neurologically plastic, with more neuroplasticity. And thank you for that. I'll remember all of your props. Thank you. But I think that one of the big problems, though, with burnout in our workplaces is a communication. First of all, a realization that we are in that state, in a burnout state, and what are the signs, and also what is the best way when all of these tricks don't work. How should you speak about this at the workplace, and what are the other ways in which you can get yourself back into reprogramming yourself, if I can say that?
Excellent question. Thank you. That's very practical. And as we were advised, we have to be very practical so we could actually do something. So that's why I gave a few of the strategies and tactics to use that. But what can we do if there is a lack of awareness or lack of knowledge how to recognize the burnout? I think we instinctively know a lot about ourselves. We feel discomfort. We can also observe other people having changes in their routines. Maybe they respond shorter emails. Maybe they come and talk less next to the coffee machine. Our intuition, our genes have the wisdom that can recognize the smallest changes. Even if you having a remote work, we can read the people's behavior through the ways how they respond to the emails. Today, the good stuff is we have artificial intelligence. You can even analyze the semantics from what they write. What kind of is this sentiment coming from the word? So therefore, what I would highly recommend, of course, we can do many things already today with a human-to-human interaction. And that's still kind of, I would say, kind of a bias. We rely on the history because we have more evidence of that. But technology is a great helper. And if we tune it right to have help to diagnose where we stand, where our people are. And we have a lot of communication and interaction already happening, as I said, verbally, and also through the emails and other ways how they connect to the systems, maybe report something in a CRM. all of those behavioral data points are accessible for our smart artificial intelligence to diagnose if we find some indications for the burnout. And once we indicate that, then we can use tools that I just presented to dig deeper and to see, is that a real problem and what's the cause of that? So therefore, I believe just more and more technologies will be enabling us to do it quicker, faster, and easier.
Thank you, Agnis, for that very insightful talk.